that's worse than my camera.
That is bad. All right, guys, looks like we're live. I'm going to wipe that camera down a little bit. Wait for people to show up. Looks like we have a few people. Can you guys hear us? Just let us know if the audio is okay. Unfortunately, we're out in public, so it might not be the greatest. Thank you. All right, I see you guys. Cool. All right, folks. So looks like a bunch of people are coming in now. So you guys, it's another live Q&A. I'm out here in Las Vegas, so we wanted to take advantage of the resource we had out here that I don't normally have, do a live video. This is Dimitri from Primary Arms. For folks that don't know, he's the one that is the primary designer behind all of the ACSS based optics, you know, whether they be BDC, MIL, MOA, all of that stuff. Yeah, I realize we're dark, guys. We're out here. It's nighttime, and we just have ambient lighting. It kind of is what it is. There's nothing we can do about that. I don't have all my equipment like I normally do. So yeah.
Should I flood this?
If you want, yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah, that'll work. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We have light. I actually have a flashlight too on me, but it would have been bad. All right, cool. So again, guys, let us know if you have any questions. It doesn't have to be about ACSS, but certainly if you have it, let us know. Have a shot of vodka. Best ACSS for 300 PRC.
There's no, well, I would go into like a grid, like the Athena BPR. That would be my choice on that.
I agree. My personal preference would be the Athena BPR mill, but their MOA works fine as well. But yeah, that's a preference thing.
Yeah, most ACSS stuff is based around military calibers.
The BDC stuff.
The BDC stuff. But if you want to get into exact firing solutions, the Athena and the Hera are two great choices there.
Okay. We got a ETA on the SLX first focal plane.
As you know,
as far as I know, April or May.
Yeah, that's what they say. I stopped giving out ETAs because you never know. I mean, sometimes they don't show up on time. So,
all right. Patrick asks, how do I factory reset my 1 to 6 Raptor ACSS?
What does that mean?
I'm assuming he means bring it back to the 0 point. So the answer for like the factory 0 point. So where it comes from the factory, the way to do that is whatever the distance travel is on your turrets, just figure that out. I don't know it offhand. It's probably in your manual. Dial it all the way out, then dial back to the middle portion, divide it in half, and then that's where you'll be at. So
I would just bore line it through the, if it's an AR, I would just take your upper apart and look through the barrel at something and then just look up and dial into that.
Or a bolt action. You can do the same thing with that. So David asked, any plans to do a ACSS and a VCOG? We've had this conversation 1,000 times.
Yeah.
The answer is we would both like to see that. That's not up to us.
Yeah. Would love to do that, but yeah, it's a long story. But
yeah. The best ACSS for someone with astigmatism. I have a preference on that, but go ahead. What's yours?
I think anything that's etched, really. I memean,
I would say anything that's etched is going to be good. However, my opinion is the prisms tend to do better with folks with astigmatism from what I've seen across the board.
Right.
It's something about how the prism optics are configured. Again, an etched variable will do it as well, but the prisms, from everything I've seen, seem to just work well with folks who have astigmatism. So
yeah, the key is to mess with the diopter ring and get it set to your eye.
Yep, agreed. All right, best ACSS reticle for Grendel. Probably going to be repeating ourselves here.
The ACSS Predator lines up with Grendel really well. Especially even our 308. If you have a really long barrel and you're using 123 grain, the VMAX, or is it AMAX? Is it AMAX?
AMAX. It makes AMAX and Grendel.
Those will line up pretty well to our 308 stuff. Guys that are wondering how their stuff lined, maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm gonna get 100 emails.
But talk about it. It's in the manual.
Yeah, it's in the manual, and it will show you how to do it. But if you have any you want to know exactly how it lines up to your particular load, you can email me and I'll try to help you out. But it has to be your feet per second that you ran through a chronograph. and not what the box says. What the box says is like hardly ever right. So
right. But definitely on the newer ACSS stuff, the stuff that's probably been coming out for like 12 to 18 months, if you look at your manual, it will give you zeros for different loads at different velocities, which is really good. I'm glad they started doing that. So if you look at your manual, it will very likely be there if it's a scope that has been released within like the last 18 months. So they're all in there, which certainly is good. Brad, that's a good question. I'm sure a lot of people have this question as well. Talk about the differences between the primary arms lines of silver, gold, platinum.
So the silver line, or the SLX, so we're not really referring to them as silver, gold, platinum anymore. It's become SLX for the silver line, and then GLX is replacing the gold line, and PLX the platinum. So silver line, as you go up in line, you obviously are getting better glass, better tracking, better turrets, and then you get into the platinum line. It's coming out of Japan. So the mathematics on the reticles are the same no matter what you buy, but the glass clarity and tracking and so on obviously is going to be better for a $1,500 scope than a $300 scope.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I agree. And I got a comment yesterday. I believe it was I posted something over on my Facebook page on a deal on something with an ACSS reticle, and somebody said that they really liked a different competitor's brand of scope that was much more expensive. And I made the point that honestly, like with the less expensive primary arms at practical distance, they're probably going to be better off because the reticles are better. I'm biased on that, obviously, because I'm sitting here with this guy. But in all seriousness, the reason I'm sitting here with this guy is because his stuff works. So before the ACSS, folks who are new here, you may not remember, but there's about 3 years on the channel where I was preaching that BDCs suck and you shouldn't use them, because that was true. Because that was true until I started using his, and they work. So, and the same is true with his mill and MOA based stuff. It's well thought out. I mean, we talk on the phone a lot about the designs of them. I'm sure you talk to other people as well who do a lot of shooting. So there's a lot of thought that goes into them. So definitely is good. Rooster's asking if the mini ACSS can co-witness on an Ultimac without burning up. I'm assuming you mean the red dot.
Oh, the
507.
Oh, the Holosun ACSS. It's what I run on all my AK-74s and Saigas and 5.56. So me personally, I've never done like a crazy mirror. I have friends that have on cranks and even smaller stuff. I've never burnt them out.
He's saying he has friends that have shot high volumes, not that have burnt them out, to be clear. Go ahead.
Right. I'm sorry. That's what I meant. For me, I've ran maybe like 10, 12 mags during training, and it seemed to hold up fine. I mean, I got my go-to guns have that type of setup on them, actually. Yeah,
we were actually shooting one like that today. Josh asked any tips of using a magnifier with the 1X Cyclops.
So the tip to that is that you got to turn the diopter ring on the Cyclops to get it to focus to the magnifier. It's going to be about a quarter turn, and it will clear up for you pretty good.
Yeah, it does work, and it also helps to make sure you have the right size riser on your magnifier for whatever amount you're using on the Cyclops, because they can be a little bit off.
He said, "Where's the bitches?"
Where are they? I don't know. They're not here.
They're not here.
Mine's in North Carolina.
Yeah, mine's at home. So.
All right, hold on. Trying to go through them, guys. They're coming in fast. Is it possible to use a holdover first focal point scope with factory ammo, or does it have to be hand loaded?
On a holdover scope? No. Are you talking about like a BDC or like a grid, or?
I'm assuming he means BDC, and the answer to that is I can't speak for him, but most of his scopes, if not all, the BDCs are aligned with military calibers. So like M80 or 855, 193, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So
I mainly focus on like MK262, M855, M193. Depends on the caliber, LR118 or the M118 LR on the 308. So typically military calibers are sticking to a certain feet per second and so on. You're not going to get a big variation. The BC will be the same. And there is factory loads, non-military, that will line up, and we list that stuff.
Yep. And then one here that we were just talking about earlier today, Gary asked if there's any interest in getting into the machine gun optics world for the 240 and 249. Yes. So we're doing some work on that. So can't promise anything, but stay tuned, guys. Let me look if I missed anything. Good primary arms, red dot for a Sega AK-47.
What did he ask? Primary arms what?
A red dot for a Sega AK-47.
I like the MDADS or standard MDADS. Those have been around for so long. You know, my home defense gun has an MDADS on it.
Yeah, it does. I saw it today, actually. Speaking of. All right, so 4 to 14 for your high point C9. That's probably not going to happen. However, a common question that I actually do get, especially more and more every day, is 9mm PCCs. So what are you thinking there?
Our 2.5 ACSS, the little prism, if you look through, it actually shows you how to zero for 9mm and what the drops are. Now, like anything, you're going to have to true it and tweak it and get it to where it's actually lining up properly, because each load will give you a different feet per second. Each barrel length will be a little bit different. So you have to play with it a little, but once you get it right, you know, you should be on.
Yep. Somebody asked, any plans for a 1 to 10?
No comment.
Any plans on doing a 1 to 6 in FDE?
You know what? I was thinking about that the other day. It's been so long, right? And we still haven't got it in. So I'm going to start pushing on that again and try to get that done.
All right. Ramtax asking 4570 lever action, LPVO options.
I like the KISS. It's a 1x6 with a chevron and a couple of mils below. Because guns like that, you're not going to shoot 500 yards. You know, it's a 200 yard gun or something.
For sure.
It's perfect for that.
Yeah, and with that one, if the load's not already worked up in terms of data in the like, if you don't have the software to like run it through an app and see how it lines up with that, just there's plenty out there. And I mean, I know you answer viewer questions all the time, right? Yeah. So, what's your email for that?
Dimitri at primaryarms.com.
There you go. Standard Greek spelling in terms of Dimitri.
Oh yeah, I'm Greek. Everybody thinks I'm Russian. But I was born here. I'm Greek American, but I'm Greek, and everyone is like, "Oh, you're from Mother Russia." I think I might be though.
I get for stock, guys. There's a whole bunch of questions coming in on stock of this item and that SKU and that. Like, he doesn't know anything, and I don't know anything that's not listed on the website. So if it says, you know, expected range, that's the best we know. Right. So there's not a whole lot. All right. Somebody asked about the Gracie family involvement in ACSS.
So the Gracie family wasn't like directly involved, right? But I started jiu-jitsu back in '94 under Hoyce. And at the time, the knowledge, jiu-jitsu knowledge wasn't just like, right now you can go on YouTube and find whatever you want. So a lot of the moves we were discovering on our own as Americans. We were actually forming mixed martial arts is what we were doing at the time. So jiu-jitsu kind of set my mind thought of how to make it work, highly efficient, less movement, you know? So let's cut out the crap and figure out what really works and what doesn't. And that was kind of the mindset behind it. So I don't have some fancy engineering degree. It all falls back to martial arts for me.
Gotcha. Cool. Hey guys, any worries about your supply chain due to coronavirus? I'm assuming that means primary arms stuff.
Yeah, I mean, on some of the, you know, some of the SKUs coming out of there, it's gonna delay things. So,
and that's across the board. I mean, I've been out here in Vegas for a few days now, and I've met with, I don't even know, several companies, and every company has seemingly some component they're waiting on from China that they're looking at delays on. So it's a big wake up in a lot of ways, I think, to a lot of people. So there's that. FNH needs to update the SCAR. For those who don't know, they have updated the SCAR. The Mark 20's out. They're coming out with the 6.5 Creedmoor as well. And I will be doing a video for those wondering on the differences between a full auto SCAR versus a semi-auto SCAR, and then also how to convert your SCARs to full auto. So stay tuned for that. Fun story. Can you please make, I lost it. Hold on. Somebody's asking a question I thought was good. Where'd it go? All right. Sorry, guys. It's a lot of questions coming at once. Somebody's asking about a variable power magnifier. So any thoughts on that?
That's a good idea. I mean, that's a lot of people have thought of that. I actually just filed a patent for range finding reticle in a magnifier.
That's a good idea.
So it'd be nice if we could get that.
On that note, any plans for spotting scopes?
I have. Well, I have a spotting scope. So my company basically creates the reticles that are licensed by Primary Arms. So the reticles exist for spotting scope. It's just at the current time for Primary Arms, we haven't found the right manufacturer and the right model and so on to bring it to market. So it's something that I keep pushing on, but there's no ETA.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to him about that years ago, so I was legitimately asking because I haven't talked to him in a few years about it. So we've had some talks on that as well. Okay, what is the most popular powered optic for the AR platform in 5.56? I'm assuming you mean battery powered optic in 5.56. So do you know which one's most popular?
I would say either our 1x6 or our MDADS.
Yeah.
So either the single dot or a 1x6 ACSS.
I'd say from what I see from viewers, it's the second focal plane 1-6.
Right.
That's the one that people seem to really like. On that note, I plan on doing a full video on it, but let's talk about this because it's a good discussion point, and I saw it twice already in the questions. In a low power variable optic, first focal plane versus second focal plane, pros and cons of each. What do you think? Okay.
Well, you want to?
Sure. So with the second focal plane, if you're using either MIL, BDC, something that has math in the reticle, like it's not just a crosshair, right? The only place that's actually true is going to be on your max magnification, right? But on your one power setting, and tell me if I'm wrong on this because you know this better than I do, with second focal plane, it's easier to get brighter on one power. Is that correct? I've heard companies tell me that.
No, it's been the same for us.
It's been the same both ways. Okay, so maybe that's changed over the years, but like 4 or 5 years ago when I asked several companies about this, they told me that. So maybe that's not true anymore.
Well, it depends, I think, because there's spacing on the illumination.
Right.
So they can't do partial illumination if it's spaced a certain amount. So it could possibly get brighter. Well, no, because the KISS isn't that much brighter either.
No, it's not. Anyway, that's my ramblings. But anyway, so it's only true at that distance. One thing in generally speaking, is that second focal plane scopes, all things being equal, which they never are, but let's say they are, tend to be less expensive. And I know why that is, but why is that?
On the
first focal plane versus second?
Plane?
Yeah.
It's much harder, even for the reticle, to get the reticle to be at one power in an FFP. I mean, that reticle is tiny, so it's etched different. So the reticle alone is very expensive.
Yep.
The lens, it's
a lot of times the glass has to be more expensive to keep the same precision on the etching as well, which is something that unless you make scopes, you probably wouldn't ever understand, but it's true. So again, it's because it gets so small. Now, the benefit that a lot of people like on a first focal plane scope of it being smaller is that to them, they can say it appears more like a red dot. So
yeah, the advantage that I find of an F, because really you're either going to be a 1 or 6.
Right. Most people.
Is the advantage would be that you go set it to 2 power. Right? So now you got like our 2 power that's upcoming. Basically, that big field of view, you're pretty quick and have a huge field of view.
Right.
But unless you're shooting past 300 yards, you could be at 2 power on the SFP and be the same thing.
Right. No, I agree. That's yeah. I think a lot of it is semantics, but there's that. Mark asks, I'm guessing he's asking me on this one, what's my opinion on Palmetto State Armory guns in terms of quality? So the answer on that is, number one, Palmetto State Armory, since I've been working with them, which literally has been since the beginning, since they were just a local gun shop. I used to live in Columbia. I'm sure many of you guys know that. They were like literally my local gun shop. The owner would fill out the 4473s that I would transfer guns on. But they've always been getting better. And they've been bringing stuff in-house continually over the years, which is, obviously a way to bring down costs and as well as control quality. So their current generation guns are better than their previous generation guns. And if you're talking AR-15 specifically, which probably you are, if you're talking about Palmetto State Armory, specs always matter. 100%. Like QC matters for sure, but specs matter, and then how it's put together. Those are really the two things that are going to be a big difference across the board. So, but Palmetto, I mean, they're making their own barrels now. They have their own forge machine. Almost all of their components are being made in-house. So that's one thing, that they're keeping their quality control better, and also bringing the prices down. Like Palmetto State Armory ARs right now are historically cheap. I've said it before, but they are like the $99 SKSs of yesterday. That's how we're going to look at the Palmetto State Armory ARs of today and the future. So, excuse me, LVSD with a super chat asks, why is the Cyclops dimmer than the other prisms?
I haven't noticed it be dimmer than the other. Well, it could be that you're at 1 power compared to 5 power, and you're taking that small reticle and making it big, so it appears brighter, but
yeah, I've never noticed that either.
Battery, it looks the same to me.
Yeah, me too. I have them all. Yeah, they look. I don't notice the difference. But all right. Sly Phillips says, I just purchased the Cyclops for my 10.5 AR pistol. How far can I realistically get to distance? Haven't tested it yet.
On a 10.5, about 300 yards.
And one thing, I mean, you probably hear it more than I do, but I'm a big fan of the Cyclops, and like I said in my video, I was working with this guy to get that thing to market for years before it actually came out. That was something I was beating on these guys about a lot. Just because prisms have so many advantages, like we were talking about with folks with astigmatism, the fact that it never needs a battery, it works in low light, it works in no light, it works in daylight, it always works. And it's just a rugged optic for the money. Now, when they first came out and I put my review out, a lot of folks were saying like they can't see the reticle or BDC doesn't work or whatever the case may be. And I mean, as you guys have seen in my videos, it definitely works. It's not magic that I'm shooting these targets at 400 and 500 yards. Like I'm really doing it. It's not like there's no video editing, trick editing or anything. But in my experience, the way, because I'll go back and forth with viewers all the time. You guys know that if you guys message me over there on Facebook. But like I always ask, the first thing I ask is, number one, have you set your diopter for your eye? Like that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't do that. And then the only other thing I can think of is that people just have bad eyesight and they don't realize it. Because like other than that, I don't see how it's possible that people have a hard time seeing that reticle. That's my 2 cents anyway.
Yeah, I think there's a few things going on. Number one is what you mentioned is the diopter ring is not safe. The diopter is the little ring on the very back. So take those scope caps off and then turn that diopter ring until everything looks true 1x, and then look at the reticle. You'll be able to see it a lot better. The reticle is 32 minutes, so you're talking about a 16-inch object at 50 yards. If you can't see a 16-inch object at 50 yards, your eyesight's not
right.
I think that's number one. Number two, I think people turn on the illumination as bright as they can in daytime. There's no reason to do that. You need to run it black.
Yeah, don't do that.
And three, I don't think some of those complaints are real. I think they're from other companies. The Cyclops has caused, some companies to be pissed off. So
that's possible. That's certainly for sure in this business, rather. All right, hold on. What do we got? What do y'all think about the PSA Glock clone? So I haven't used it. I just saw it online. If it works and if it's reliable, that's a lot of gun for the money. $299 for a 15+1 9mm made in America. Yep.
How much?
$299 shipped.
It's pretty cheap.
I know. And it takes all of like Glock parts too. Apparently, I haven't handled one again. I've just seen the reports online. Mossberg asks, and Mossberg is a longtime viewer here. Appreciate that. He says, "Will the PA microdot allow for irons to work on a SOCOM 16?" I think you have one. Do you have a SOCOM 16?
No, I got a full-size M1. M1A.
Yeah, I don't have a SOCOM 16. I can't say. It's got the scout mount though. I don't know.
On a low base, it should co-witness. If anything, well, that would be it.
Right. Like if your aim point micro will co-witness with it, it'll co-witness with it. It's the same height off the mount. The neighbor guy says the low power variable optic with the most generous eye relief. Platinum, probably 1-8.
Yeah, probably the 1x8 platinum.
Yeah, the 1-8 platinum. Sorry if we're talking quiet, but yeah, 1-8 platinum would be. That's what I would say. And just for what it's worth, my favorite reticle in that thing is the Raptor M2. That's a nasty reticle. You can own terrain with it. I say that sometimes on the channel, but it's absolutely true. You get up in an observation or a high firing position, Overwatch position, there's a lot you can do real fast with that reticle. So it's pretty badass. So
yeah, to give you guys an example, like on an unknown distance target, 500-600 yards out, within under 10 seconds, we can range in and engage it. And people talk about laser rangefinders. Well, if you only got 10 seconds to sit there and do this and then hop on a gun, it's kind of too late for what your type of shooting you're talking about. You got to get it right then and there.
And we were out in the desert and doing just range estimation on different folks out in the desert doing whatever. Obviously, we weren't pointing guns on them. We had a whole bunch of
holding a scope.
We had a whole bunch of prototype scopes, and like he ranged one group of people. I think you thought they were 950, and I thought they were 1050. He was right; they were 948. When we verified with the laser rangefinder, we did another group at 400. I said they were right at, I think you said they were just over. It ended up being 404. So, I mean, like we were doing this stuff just literally driving through the desert with these scopes, different prototypes. So, I mean, these things are accurate and they're fast. Like, I mean, you can just pull it up, bang, that person's roughly this far away. And in terms of combat effective hits, I mean, you're going to hit that all day long.
Yeah, I mean, it's basic math. You take the average height and turn it into minutes of angle. And, well, the convergence to the... Yeah, sorry. It works.
It does work. And I think one of the things that until you actually go out and do what I just said in terms of like orient your scope at people at different distances, and then if you have a laser rangefinder there with you to verify, you'll see how it works. Because until you do that, I think it makes you question the system. But like I just said, I mean, we're pretty close. I was 100 meters off at 1,000 yards, but he was still right on. But like, I mean, that's a long way. Like if you're standing there with your naked eye, you have no idea if that's 1,000 yards or 1,800 yards.
It was like 3 miles to me. I did. I was like, oh my God, it's so far away. Yeah, if you want to practice this stuff, get a 2x4, 5, 10, and 18 inches and nail it together, and then there you go.
Yep.
But it's the same math you'd use to mill somebody.
It is the same mill. All right. Conan asks, if I want a 1 to 8 on a war weapon, is the platinum enough or too much? So it's totally fine. And if you guys watched my my ultimate DMR video that I put up last month, I was basically saying that was my conundrum that I was going through. Like, do I go with a 1 to 8, like platinum, for example, which has every feature you could ever freaking want on a scope,
and the 2x10,
or the 2, but yeah, that's what I was going back and forth.
I've had that. I was like, I keep looking at my 2x10 going, should I stick a 1x8 on there?
Yeah, but so I mean, it's totally capable, especially if you're talking 5.56. Like the practical combat effective range of 5.56, depending on whatever military document you may read, varies. But I mean, you start pushing, unless you're using match grade bullets beyond 600 yards. You're not going to even if you're hitting, your effects aren't going to be that great. So it's always a compromise there. Most people aren't reaching out that far. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Afghanistan vets and stuff out there that have, but that's exceedingly rare in any type of battlefield. So it'll do everything you want it to do on a 5.56 gun. I'll tell you that much. So,
and how important wind is at those distances with a low BC round like 5.56. I mean, people don't get how far over that round's going to get pushed over.
Sure. Michael asked, is the ACSS ever going to get an LCAN?
That's another long story. So the reticle was designed for an LCAN and submitted, and it's hung up on their back end. Yeah, LCAN is manufactured by who? Raytheon, right?
Raytheon.
And then owned by who? The Spectre?
Yeah. Spectre out of Canada.
Yeah, the relationship there and what's going on with them, and I don't know. But the reticle does exist, and it's been created.
Yeah, we both worked on that one, and that was like 2 years ago. So we tried. It's out of our hands. So there's that. All right, I'll have somebody jumped in there. The super chat. I don't want to miss that fella. Hold on. There it is. Oh. Sorry, guys. A lot of questions coming at once. All right, so Billy Sorge, if I pronounced that wrong, I apologize. Will the Silverline 1 to 8X hold up on a SCAR? So before he answers that, I have not tried the SLX 1 to 8 on a SCAR, but I have ran extensively. I'm pretty sure I was the first one with a prototype. I ran the 3 to 18 a lot. A lot on the SCAR 17. I think I was the first one to do that with thousands of rounds, and it held up just fine. That's the SLX 3 to 18, 1 to 8. Got any data on that?
On the 3x18, no. The 3x18 initially was tested on heavy magnum calibers. It wasn't tested on him testing it on a scar, I believe was a.
I think it was the first.
No, we were testing it on a foul.
Yep.
And then you were on a scar.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point after that, I said we have to have a scar 17 for testing because that's what eats up all the optics. So everything coming out now has at least 5,000 rounds on a scar before it enters the market from us. That's part of the testing. So to answer your question, yeah, it will hold up.
And just to answer that question a little bit more in detail or in depth rather, the scar, what really, for those that don't know why the scar eats optics, just like the FAL, one thing that was unique about it, or not unique, but different than many, like a bolt action or a light recoiling AR, was the closing when a lockup recoil. So most scopes were designed for the actual initial bolt moving back, that jerk, but not the forward jerk. And that's what was really jacking scopes up. And really, I don't know, I can't speak for every optics company, but most optics company now in the last few years are starting to design with that in mind. So it's getting better and like less optics are being eaten by the scar. But I've told stories here on the channel of units I've been in where even like loophole Mark IVs and stuff are getting eaten up. I would imagine the current loophole like Mark 6s wouldn't be because like I said, they're starting to design with that in mind because there's other rifles that are using a similar operating system, which again, really is just a modified FAL operating system in reality. All right, hold on. I got a few of you guys chiming in here. I want to get to you. Brian asks, why no etched reticle mini red dots for pistols? I know the answer to that one. And why have I reviewed the Wolf T91 URG? I'm assuming you mean why haven't I reviewed it? I've actually never handled one outside of a trade show. If I could ever get my hands on one, I'll review it. For the mini dots with pistol reticles.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be complicated and get into I mean, I'm sure it could be done, but I mean, that's.
But we've talked about like, for instance, like something that fits like a pistol slide with a BDC on it before. Like, what's the issue there? Like if you're talking like 9mm, most loads with a.
He's talking BDC.
Yeah, with like a 124 grain bullet, you're looking at typically, every load's different, but you're looking at about 10 inches of drop at 100 yards. If my memory's correct, you know that better than me. Is that right? It's gonna be close to that.
I believe it was a 25-yard zero you're holding here, and it's impacting center mass.
Right. So
whatever that would be.
So yeah. So, are any plans to make anything like that?
There is plans for a pistol sight. That I just submitted not long ago, mainly the reticle. Again, what I do is I create the reticles, not so much the actual scope that you guys see. I input a lot on the scope, but I don't, that is not 100%, designed by me. Our manufacturers and so on are involved in that. But a BDC on a pistol, I can get very tricky. You got different loads, different barrel lengths, and different calibers, and so
zero distances, etc.
Yeah.
But there is plans for it. Is the answer to the question. But whether or not it'll ever come, we don't know. Russell asks, said keep up with the great videos. Thank you, Russell. I appreciate that. Poff the Boss, great name. Asks, would Trijicon put the ACSS in the Trijicon 1-8? So before whatever your answer to that is, from my understanding, the Trijicon 1-8 AccuPower has been discontinued with their new line that they released at SHOT. So that's my understanding on that. But your thoughts on that?
I mean, that would be up to Trijicon.
Yep. So, but for those who don't know, again, the reason that's probably being asked is that there are ACSS reticles in several Trijicon optics, at least 3 at this point, right? 3. So
yeah, 3.
So yeah. So again, the reticles he designs aren't just primary arms, and there's other companies that are in talks, I guess you could say, for sure. Like we already mentioned, Elcan. So there may be stuff out there coming in the future. All right, hold on. Whole bunch of folks just popped up down here at once. Mandatory carry says at work, but I'll be back later. Keep fighting. We will do that. Thank you. Appreciate that. The Guardian says, can a Cyclops work with a magnifier? Maybe add more ranging options, and XCR review would be great. XCR, I would totally do a review if I can get my hands on one. I don't think I've ever even handled the current ones anyway. The current Robinson arms, so I have ones. So if I get one, I will. But thoughts on the Cyclops with the magnifier, adding additional ranging options?
Well, I mean, it's ranging full height, which will give you the most accurate reading, and shoulder to shoulder. So it'd be hard to get head size targets in something that small. It would just look almost like a single dot. And the smaller the target that you're ranging, the less effective your ranging becomes, the greater their error becomes. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the coronavirus? I'll give my thoughts on it. My thoughts are the flu, as far as I know, is killing way more people everywhere, including America. Wash your hands. Generally should be good. If it starts to become a pandemic, probably too late because most of the N95 and above masks are pretty much sold out. And most of them are made in China, so they're not coming over. So, yeah, good luck with that. But no, wash your hands.
Yeah. No one's protesting anymore.
Exactly. The Kung flu, somebody said. Hold on.
Yeah, the flu that you'll get at SHOT Show is probably a lot worse than the coronavirus. I'll tell you that.
All right, hold on. All right. So David asks, can I please compare the eye boxes between the SLX first focal plane and second focal plane in the 1 to 6 first focal plane? Thanks. So David, if you actually go check out my video I did probably a month or two ago on the SLX first focal plane, I had them all three out in person, and I kind of went into that like live with them in front of me, which is probably the best way to do it. I'll tell you, between the 1 to 8 and 1 to 6 first focal plane, from my perception, it was really hard to see a difference in the eye box. They're pretty darn freaking close. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I was about to say the same thing. I really can't tell them apart.
Yeah, it's tough. So, Zach asks, is there going to be a higher power GLX prism in the works?
I've been pushing for a 4X for a long time. So hopefully at some point we'll see a 4X.
Gotcha. How do you vertical range with the Raptor reticle?
So you can range estimate a full height target, put the bottom 600 yard BDC on the feet, and then anything past the chevron tip is 400 and in. If it's touching the chevron, then you're at 500. Bottom of the chevron, the post is 600. So you got 5 and 6 on the post. That's really where you need to start getting into range estimation, is past 4-ish, is where you got to really be careful. And
okay, Shabbat asks, is primary arms coming out with ACSS and 6.5 Creedmoor, so it's out. I actually have a video on the 3 to 18. I believe it's combined with 224, correct?
Right.
In terms of the reticle, yeah. So I have the 6 to 30 version as well. I don't think I've done a video on it yet, but I have it on a 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor ballistic advantage build, and it's like cheating, because the big thing, even in 5.56 with the ACSS stuff, is that wind, like where I shoot anyway, wind is always a factor, and 3 shots in a row will keyhole, and then the next one the wind will kick up and you'll miss the target, right? So with the 6.5, if you're at like 500 yards, let's say, but with the 6.5 Creedmoor, it just bucks the wind so well because of the ballistic coefficient. Relatively, obviously, there's better BC bullets, but 6.5 still is very, very good in general. And out there, it's almost impossible to miss with that thing. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you're just favoring left a little, right, instead of
off the target.
At wind dots. Yeah.
Right, correct. So, all right, hold on. Again, guys, I don't know why this happens, but they all come in at once.
Is that how many people are on right now? It's 4:38.
Yeah. And they've gone off too. Asks ACSS Griffin any good? Take that on while I'm scrolling through. I'm guessing you think it is good because you designed it.
See, and a lot of the stuff you guys, I'll be honest, I don't design it. The math designs it, and,
right,
and the what is needed designs it. I think the Griffin is a professionals type reticle.
I agree.
And it does your fast CQB work. It can go into a medium range, unknown distance. So you have multiple target engagement. There's no time to sit there and calculate anything. So you just have to range and shoot, and it can do that. And at the same time, because it's integrated into the mill system, you can run your kestrel, your ballistic data, and like shoot past 1,000 yards with complete precision of the mill system. So the Griffin mill is one of my favorites, but it's one of those things that you have to know how to run mills and you have to understand what's going on to take full advantage of it.
I would say I agree with that beyond 500 or 600 yards.
Right.
Within that, you kind of don't, because you can use that as an improvised BDC.
Right.
So I don't think I have a video on that reticle. I need to do a video on that reticle and explain that in better detail. But I assure you what I said is true. so Sly Phillips sent a super chat. Thank you for that. And oh, damn, I lost one.
Wait, how much of that money do I get?
You get all of it. I'll let you know all about it. Rocket Ship said, have you ever thought about doing or rather, what scope do you recommend for 7.62 by 54R? That's a good question.
The HUD DMR will actually be very effective with that. If you have a long-barreled 7.62 by 54R, the Orion, which is set to 30-06, will line up pretty well with that as well.
And then I would just add on that one too. With 7.62 by 54R, you're going to have dramatic differences if you're talking about like one of the compact versions of the like an M38 or something like that versus a PSL, right? And then also if you're using like machine gun 150 grain or 147, depending on what country made it, ball ammo versus like the Winchester 180 grain ammo. So there's a lot of variables there. Again, just check your manual because a lot of that stuff is actually in the manual. It'll show you like 0 an inch high with this load at 100 yards you'll be on to 6 or something like that. So that stuff is actually in the actual manuals. Are those manuals online? Like, so can people see them without buying it?
You might be able to go on the website and catch the PDF.
Okay, I don't know, but if it is, check that too beforehand, and I'll pass it off to him if you want to see him or you want to see the match. Just email him.
Yeah,
so
iSturlock too has all the reticles in there.
They do, yeah. If you use Strelak Pro or what's it? iSturlock.
iSturlock, yeah.
Yeah. So if you use either one of those, which I do, you guys see it all the time on my channel. I'll roll in the math behind it. That will give you the ability to plug in your data with your load with your barrel and see how it'll line up, and you can play with the zeros and stuff like that with it. For those that don't know,
not only will it show you the reticle and how the BDC aligns, but it can actually link to a kestrel and give you a live update for your pressures and so on as it's changing.
Absolutely. I'm trying to go through. Deer Meat asks, what do we recommend for something between the 2MOA dot and ACSS for something like hunting and plinking? So I would say probably a low power variable optic is what you're looking at there. Most folks, unless you live out west, hunting is probably limited to 300 it in and most likely 200 and 100 it in. So with that, the greater target discrimination you get with a low power variable optic is definitely an advantage over a red dot to be able to see if that's a deer antler or a stick or something like that. And then the predator reticle is really kind of built around that concept. So do you want to touch on that?
Well, that's what I was going to say is the predator.
Yeah. So how does the predator work for somebody who's never seen it?
So the predator has auto range BDC, and the auto range is 10-inch circles. So average coyote belly to back is about 10 inches. The thing with 10 inches, you can imagine 10 inches on anything. So it allows you to be very versatile, not only in hunting, but tactical as well. I mean, 10 inches, could be fitted on anything.
Right. The side to side of most people's plates. You can see bulging out of their plate carrier. You can range with that. So, all right. So we're going to cut this one off and not too far, guys, but I'm trying to get to questions we got up now anyway. It's freezing. Lost one. Pete of the super chat said,
yeah, so it means hi in Greek.
I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I speak a bunch of languages for those that don't know. I got it. Great job of what we're doing. Thank you. Any thoughts on introducing solar tech to the scopes? That's a good question. To prolong battery life?
That is something that we've looked at. There's a lot of patents out there that you have to kind of dance around and try to figure out how to do stuff. So it's something we've thought of. It's it might potentially come in other future optics that we do, but there's nothing coming out this year, for instance. that's solar like that.
So, but one thing I will caveat on that is, like right now, I've had in the 2X prisms, and those are known, right? I'm not just leaking that.
No, they know.
Okay, yeah. I thought so. I thought they were known. Either way, they're known now. It's a live video.
Yeah.
But so I've had the 2X prisms in since they came in the country, the prototypes. And what's really cool about those guys is they have the shake awake technology and 20,000 hour battery life. So mine have been on since I've had them in for months now. And every time you pick it up, they're on. I've left them and just kind of waited and see, and they sure enough turn off. And then if you just touch it barely, it comes right on. So for those of you guys who want that illumination at all times, I mean, it does it. It does it. And 20,000 hour battery life, for those who don't know, is a year and a half. But with Shake Awake, then it's like forever. I mean, it's just,
or like the ACSS micro dot, you got 50,000 hours. So that's 5.7 years. But it's got auto on, auto off. So if you're not using the weapon, it turns off. So that's going to end up blasting you
a long time.
You really should change your battery out once a year.
Every year, I agree.
Let's say you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you have no access. It's going to last you like 12 years. I don't know what the shelf life of a battery is, but
I think a CR2032 is rated at 10 years. The battery itself is.
So yeah,
like the Energizer lithium one is. I know that for a fact. So I was talking to Aimblin about that once.
Yeah. Put a couple more batteries in your pistol grip and you're good to go.
For like 20 years. Yeah. All right. Arif, great name. Says, I bought another can last night. I dropped a comprehensive suppressor video today. I think I dropped that a couple days ago, but either way. I need you to start reading my mind and get about 24 hours ahead of time. I do what I can, guys. I do what I can. Honestly, though, on that, a lot of those videos, like when I do the whiteboard videos, those are just, and I'm going to continue to do them because you guys seem to like them and actually watch them on like most of my videos. For what it's worth, my audience always seems to watch about 20% of my subscribers watch my video within the first 6 months. So, but the whiteboard videos, it's about 40%. So a much higher percentage of subscribers watch those videos. So it seems you guys like them. But the ideas from those just come from my Facebook inbox. So it's just questions that I get constantly repetitive questions. So I'm not reading your mind. I'm reading the collective mind of the audience. So that's how that's coming from. All right. We're going to do one more question, guys, and we're going to kill it because we got to go home. So don't send anything else out. Hold on. Let me see. If we get one that's not a joke.
These nuts. Skeet.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that. Let me try to get it. All right, there you go. That's actually a good one. These nuts, the same skeet guy. He's asking, will there be a 7.62 by 395X prism?
No. It's a little too much for that caliber. I mean, 7.62 by 39 typically is good out to about 5. Past 5, you're really pushing it. It's going to go transonic, subsonic, and then end up yawing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So,
yeah. So no is the answer right now, at least as of right now.
We make a 1x6.
Yep.
Variable. So if you're really looking for that magnification, that's what I would do.
Yep. And both first focal plane and second focal plane for that. If you're up for it, do you want to discuss transonic? That's a frequently asked question. I mean, I can do it too. Like, what happens when a bullet goes transonic? What do we mean by that when we're saying that? Go ahead.
Well, it just means like, okay, so the bullet's gone supersonic. So picture this, the speed of sound, right? So the bullet's gone supersonic, and as it starts to go transonic, it's encountering the buffer zone, and the bullet starting to kind of destabilize,
right,
and creating yaw and pitch and so forth. And then once it goes past that, then you go into subsonic flight. And depending on the caliber, if you're shooting further out, the whole angle of attack will change. So the bullet will actually start to veer upwards, and then it will go crazy and kind of tumble off.
Yep. And so a common misconception, from what I'm trying to see if I can find something cylindrical to represent this in my bag here. But yeah, perfect. All right. So a common misconception, let's say this is the tip of the bullet and this is the rear of the bullet. A common misconception that people think, from what I'm again, comments that I read. So like when the bullet's supersonic, it's spinning like this, nice and straight, and everything's good. When it goes transonic, it doesn't just like tumble. It's not how it works. What he said is correct. So when it goes through that zone of transonic to subsonic, what ends up happening is the pressures of that are impacting the bullet, and it starts to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? So you start to lose your precision capability now until it actually tumbles, and at some point it will tumble. That's totally dependent on the bullet atmosphere. There's all kinds of conditions that go into that, but until it does that, it's reasonably accurate, I guess you could say. So that's what's actually happening as it goes transonic. But beyond, once that happens, it's really hard to predict where your impacts are going to be. And then once it actually does yaw, like
that reminds me of the mile shot we did. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where it was like we were subsonic before that, and it was just like 2 mils left, 2 mils right. It was just like,
yeah. So for those who haven't seen it, we were shooting at a mile with 50 BMG, and like it was that we weren't using bullets intended for that, number one, but we could see with the trace them starting to go through transonic, subsonic, and you would see it just go like off to the left. Yeah. And it was like calling artillery at some point. So so that's transonic, subsonic, all that sort of thing. I think we got to all the questions before we cut it off that weren't mean questions anyway. So that's it, man. Anything you want to add? Cool. All right, everybody, I appreciate this. I appreciate all the questions, all the subscriptions. We just hit 400,000 on that note. For those of you guys that don't follow me on Facebook or Instagram, we had 400,000 here on YouTube, like last week, actually. And we'll be doing a giveaway. There will be a primary arm scope in that, but stay tuned to a full video on that. We'll do a video about the giveaway. But I appreciate all of you guys out there. The channel growth has been crazy, and it's humbling, very, very much so. So that's really it, guys. Thanks.
Curse you and your helpers?
I don't know, man. It's the internet. Anyway, all right. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you guys in the next video.